window.file, which is the entry point of our application, where I have set an empty container with a white background as the home. So that's what we see on the right side in the simulator. Okay. Now for this demo, we need some screens. So let me create a folder and a screen named login screen. And we need one more screen, the home screen. And let me quickly write the login screen, which is a stateful widget. Import the material package. Now let's quickly create the UI for the login screen. So an bar with title login, body, which is a container. The container will have the child, which is a column, and two text fields, email and password. So let's initialize the controllers for email and password and initialize the text field with corresponding controllers. And a flag button which will say login. Okay, now let's go to the main.file and replace the home container with the login screen. Okay, so there is our login screen. Now let me create the home screen. So home screen extends stateful widget, import the material package, and the build method is going to return a scaffold with an bar and title, let's say home. Okay, and body with an empty container with background color as white. Now let's go back to the login screen, and on tap of the button, let's open the home screen. So that will be navigator.push replacement, because let's think about it as a real login screen and we don't want a back button there. So it's push replacement. Okay, so okay, I forgot a semicolon there. So let's import the home screen. Okay. Now let's get into the real topic for this demo, which is the reusable widgets, right? So here you can see we have two text fields. So basically in a real world applications, the text fields in an app will have the same look and feel, right? They will have the same color, same kind of properties, right? So let's see how we can write it in two different ways. So let me write it the wrong way first, and I'll tell you what is the right way to do it. Okay, so I'm just writing a static function which is going to return the text field. Okay, then we are going to call this function. I'm going to import the material package here. Okay, and pass in the controller and whatever parameters we need. Okay, then I'm going to call this function here. So that will be utils.get text field and pass in the controller. Okay, so here you can see that nothing has changed in the UI, but in our widget tree it's something like a function is being called, right? It doesn't look like a widget is being added to the tree, correct? So this is definitely not the right way to do it. But if you're doing like this, you can do like let's say I'm adding a container, and you can provide this function as a child of the container. So let me show that. Child, you can pass in the function there. This also works, but still it doesn't look like a proper widget tree, correct? So the solution is reusable widgets. So let's see how we can create a reusable text field so that it will be uniform across the screens in our app, and it will have the same theme and the properties. Okay, so let me create a new folder. I'm gonna create a new file, tf.dart. You can name it any way you want, and a class name as well. You can name it any way you want. So I'm just naming it tf. Okay, import the material package, and let's write a constructor. So I'm gonna pass in a set of parameters for this widget. Okay, controller, hint text, help text, prefix icon, suffix icon, is password, enabled, read only, and border color. Now we have to declare all those constructor parameters. All should be final. Okay, icon data, suffix icon, final boolean, is password, enabled, read only, and the border color. Okay, Now I'm going to return a container with a child text form field, and I'm going to supply all those properties. If I'm not sending read only, then it's going to be false. So similarly, if I'm not sending is password variable, then I'm setting it to false. Now let's set the decoration for this text form field. Focus border with a green accent border, and similarly for enable border and border. For border, we are setting in the border color that's coming in. So if it's not being sent, then we are setting it to teal color. And for hint text, if it is null, I'm setting it to empty. And similarly for help text, if it is null, you can throw some error if you want at this moment if you're getting some null values, but I'm not going to do that for this demo, but it's up to you. Now let's set the prefix icon. So if it is not being sent, then it will be null, so I'm setting it to null. Otherwise it will be icon and prefix icon inside prefix icon. Okay, and for similarly for suffix and enabled, by default it will be true. Okay, now let's go back to our login screen and add our widget. Okay, now you can pass in those parameters. It's okay if you are not sending some values, some parameters, because all are optional, right? So I'm going to do the same thing for the password text field. So here I'll be sending the is password, which is set to true. Okay, sorry, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, so you can see that it's the same thing as before, like when we wrote the functions, right? But now it looks good, and it's looking like we have added some widgets, right? So what about, let's create a new file, and I'm gonna name it btn. So this is going to be the reusable button throughout our app. Okay, so I'm gonna pass in an on-press event and a text, and additionally I'll be passing a color. So the color is not just for coloring the button, but I'll be explaining it in a short while. Okay, so watch till the end. Now let's give some other properties to the button. A shape, which is a rounded rectangle border with a border radius of 3. Okay, and I'm setting the color to the parent container of this button. Okay, we have some other use for this color, so I'll be explaining that. So let's replace the flat button with our button and pass in the on-press event and the text. Okay, now let's try passing the color. So colors.green. Okay, but I want the text to be white in color for all the buttons in my app. Okay, so I'm just changing the common button component. Okay, you can see that it has changed to white. Now I want the button to be horizontally expanded. Okay, so I'm putting it inside a row widget and wrapping it with an expanded widget. Okay, so now our component is just like any other Flutter component, right? Okay, now let's try setting the prefix icon. Okay, that's working. So if I'm setting for password, let's set it to lock open. Okay, that's working. So what if I pass in null, right? That's gone. So it's completely customizable now. So I want to create one more reusable widget. So I want to show a forgot password link button. I'm copying the button dot and renaming it to button link button dot. Okay, and renaming the class name to link button, and I don't want a background color here, so I am removing it. Okay, so let's add the link button to our login screen. Pass in the text forgot password. Okay, you are not seeing the link button, right? So let me restart the app. And the reason why is we had copied the button widget, right? And it's white in color. So when I added the on-press event, you can see the button, right? So let me remove the colors.white and set the color which is passed in. Okay, so let's pass the colors.green. Okay, now you can see that our link button is green color, right? Okay, so we can use it anywhere and change the color according to our requirement. Okay, now let's change the color of the text field, the enable border, to red, so you can see that both text fields are affected, right? So that's a common component, so it's going to affect wherever it's being used. All right, so those were some of the uses of reusable widgets. Okay, now let's go to our home screen, and I'm going to add a settings icon in the app bar, which is going to open a settings screen. Okay, so let's create a new screen, which is the settings screen, and the settings screen is going to display a grid of colors, and the user is going to select each color, and we are going to change the theme of our app based on that. Okay, so let me declare a list of colors, static list of colors: black 87, blue, purple, indigo, green, teal, red, amber, brown, and deep orange. Okay, I think these should be enough to create a grid of colors. Okay, so let's create a scaffold with an app bar with sorry, I typed it wrong. Okay, and title, it's gonna say settings. Okay, and the body, which is going to be a container, and colors.white, and a child, which is going to be a column with children. Let's add a wrap widget, and the children will be a list of widgets. So list of widget dot generate colors dot length, and we need to return the cell from here, the each row cell. Okay, so let's create another reusable component, color cell, import the material package. So this is going to display just a color, a block of color. Okay, so it's going to accept a color as parameter. Now let's go to our container inside the build method, and I'm gonna set the alignment. The reason I'm setting the alignment is in future we'll be adding a child which will be aligned to the center. Okay, so right now I'm not adding the child, so decoration will be a box decoration with the color. Okay, all right, so let's import it here and pass in the color. Okay, and let's go to the home screen and open the settings screen. So let me copy the code from the login screen and paste it there and change it to settings screen. Sorry, there was a typo, settings screen. Okay, restart the app. Okay, it's working, but our back button is missing, right? So that's because I did a push replacement instead of push, right? Okay, so restart the app. Okay, so it's working good. So we didn't customize our app bar, right? So if you hover over the app bar, you can see that it's a stateful widget, but it implements a preferred size widget, right? So it needs a size. So let's see how we can create a reusable app bar. Okay, so class, I'm gonna name it iAppBar. Okay, and I'm gonna extend a preferred size, import the material package. Okay, and so it's going to accept a child, so that you can set any child in the app bar. And the main thing is it's going to need a height. Okay, and I'm going to write a constructor that's going to accept the child which is required and the height. So if we are not sending the height, it's going to take a default height. That's a K toolbar height. So let's see what is the size. That's 56. That's provided by Flutter. Okay, so by default it's going to take a height of 56. Okay, so if I go to the preferred size, so let me click on it, so you can go to the preferred size. You can see that it's implementing a preferred size widget, right? That implements a widget. and we need to override a method. So that's the method we need to override. So I'm just copying it and pasting it there. Add the override. Okay, and we need to return the height from here. So size dot from height and pass in our height. Okay, and we need to have the build method and return the widget from here. So height will be preferred size dot height, and I'm going to set the color, which is colors dot red, and the third parameter alignment, I'm setting the alignment to center, and fourth parameter is the child, which is the child that we are sending in. Okay, I'm going to comment out this app bar, and we are going to use our app bar component. That is, so if you use a simple container here, that's not going to work, right? So I'm using our component, and I'm going to pass in the row that's going to have a text. So you can see that the text is there, so you can customize it any way you want. So let's style it. So height 120. Okay, so you can see that the height is increased, and I'm setting the cross axis alignment to center and main axis alignment also to center. Okay, all right, our text is in center now. Okay, now I want the icon button, okay, which is a settings icon, and I want to put the text inside a expanded widget, and I want to center the text. So go inside the text widget and set the text align to center. Okay, now the text is centered. Now let's go to the app bar component, and I want to set a color to the app bar. So let me add a variable color, and I'm going to set the container color to the passed in color. So if it is null, you can do the null check like this as well. No need of any ternary operator. Okay, so you can see that we are not sending any colors, so by default it's setting it to red. Now let's try changing the color in a dynamic way. Okay, so for that we need a package. We need to save the state in some way, right? So let's use the provider package. I have already made a tutorial on providers. I'll be adding it in the description below this video. Okay, so let's copy the package and go to our pubspec YAML file and add it below the dependencies section, and call flutter packages get in the terminal and install the package. Okay, now let's close this file, and I'm going to create a new file named app settings. Okay, in the utils folder. Now let's write a new class, app settings, that extends change notifier, and I'm going to declare a variable color, app color. So default is the teal color, and a getter for this variable app color. Okay, and okay, now let's go to the settings screen, and I'm going to copy this colors variable, the whole array, and keep it in the app settings. Okay, now let's write a function to update the color. So update color, I'm going to pass in the index and set app color is equal to colors of index, and this is the main part called notify listeners. So wherever this variable is used, it's going to be notified or refreshed. Okay, so for that we need to do a main thing. Before that, let me copy this colors and keep it in a different file, constants, since it's a constant, right? So those are defined set of colors. Okay, you can make it a constant or whatever you want. Okay, so that's not important really. So let me import the constants here in the settings screen, and call constants.colors.length and constants.colors of index. Okay, all right, so it's there. Now let's go to the main.dart file. So here is the most important thing. Whichever widgets that want to listen to the changes of a particular variable in the change notifier class, needs to be inside a provider widget. So the widget is actually multi-provider. It's going to take a list of providers, so you can have more than one notify class, right? So here we have only one notify class, which is called app settings. Okay, so I'm going to provide that, and so that means if there is any change in the app color, our whole widget, the whole app widget is going to be notified. Okay, wherever the app color variable is being used. So here we need to provide the child, that's our whole app, the material app, which is the root. So whenever the variable is updated, the whole app is going to be notified. Okay, so that's the idea. So whenever the app color variable changes, so it's going to call the notify listeners, which is going to notify our whole app in this case. Okay, because we have wrapped it in the root of our app, right? So let me wrap the settings color cell inside a gesture detector, and let me import the provider here. So here is the important part. We need to update the color and call the update color function, right, which is in the app settings, right? So we need to get the app settings instance. So this is how we do it. To set or update a variable, we need to call context.read with app settings dot update color, and we are passing in the index. Okay, so we have updated it, but we have not read it, right? So the functions are a little bit confusing, but this is how we need to use. So I'm gonna change the ABBA color when the user chooses it. Okay, chooses a color. So that will be context dot watch and pass in the app settings dot app color. Okay, let's see if that's working. I'm gonna restart the app, click on login, so you can see that it's a teal color, that's a default color, and when you click on a particular color, the ABBA is changed because we are reading it here, right? So this can be applied to any widget. So that's why I had sent a color to each widget. So if I change the button color in the login, let me import the package. Okay, provider. Okay, so if I refresh the app, you can see that that's a default color. But if I change it, it's going to change the button color in the login screen, but we don't have any way to go back, right? So you can save it in some preferences and you can load it back. So we are not going to do it here. Okay, so that is the basic setup that is working. So these are some of the advantages when we write widgets in this way. It can be very reusable and easy to maintain the code, and the code will be really simple. Okay, so let's go to our color cell, and I'm going to add a child here. So when the user taps on it, I want to add a check mark at the center of the color cell when it matches the color. Okay, so I'm going to match the app color with the color passed in. So that's the present color of this cell. Then I'll be showing a check mark with white color, so it's already there, so you can see, right? Okay, so that's a good visual indication that it's selected. Okay, so why don't we change the color of the home screen background like this? Okay, let's see. Okay, it's changed. Perfect. All right, so let's go to the app settings, the settings screen, and set the background color for the ABBA, so you can see it right away, right? Okay, I'm setting it to alignment to center and adding a space. Okay, that looks good. All right, I want the color cell to be a little bit bigger, so I just want to change the width and height, right? Okay, 80. So wherever you use this color cell in your app, it's going to change there, and you can set any style you want. It's going to affect the whole app wherever this component is used, so it will be completely reusable. So that's the right way to do it. And one more thing to remember is that your reusable widgets should be stateless. It should not hold any state of its own. That is a recommended way, but you can make it stateful also, but try to keep the state out of the that particular reusable widget as much as possible. So that is the recommended way to do it. Okay, I have provided the link to the source code, the plugins that I. So in the previous video we had three screens: the login screen, home screen, and the settings screen. So when the user logs in, we were actually replacing the login screen with the home screen. So I'm going to change the navigation using routes. So for that, I'm going to create a new file, name it routes.dart, and create a class. I'm going to say routes, and let's write a function static routes that's going to return a list of route IDs. So we need to declare the route ID in each screen first. We have three screens here: the login screen, the home screen, and the settings screen. So let's go to the the login screen, and create a static constant route ID with ID login underscore screen. Okay, let me save that, and let's go to the home screen and create a route ID with home underscore screen, and similarly in the settings screen, settings underscore screen. Okay, and in the routes method, let's return those route IDs, context, and return the login screen. So similarly for home screen and the settings screen. Let me write two more methods. The first method to return the initial screen, that is our login screen. Okay, or let me change that to initial route. Okay, and another method to return the home screen, which is the home route. Okay, now let's go to the main.dart and comment that out and specify the routes property to. So our class name was routes dot routes. Okay, and the initial route, which is our login screen, so routes dot initial route. Okay, refresh the app. So there is our login screen. Now I'm gonna add a logout button in the settings screen. So let's go to the settings screen, and I'm gonna use the link button that we created in the previous video. Okay, so text, which is logout, and on press of the button, I'm gonna call a method navigator dot push named and remove until. So this is the reason we created the navigation with routes, so that we can manipulate the navigation stack easily. So this will clear off the stack and it will open the login screen. Okay, so that the user won't be able to go back to the previous screen. So let's see if that's working. So let's go to the settings screen, click logout. So if we swipe back, or if you hit back button in the Android device, it's not going to go back. Okay, now let's try saving the theme that the user selects in the settings and update the UI when he logs in. Okay, so let's go to the, so let me show that. So that's how the user can select a color. Now it's updating at runtime. We are not saving it. Okay, so let's go to the constants.dart file where we defined our constants, the list of colors. Okay, so let me open it. Sorry, this is the wrong one, and let's open ours. Okay, so there you can see the list of colors that we defined. Let me make it a constant. Okay, and let's go to the app settings class that we created in the previous video, which is the notify class, where we have the default color, which is a teal color. So let's find the teal color here, and let me put it as the first item in the array. Okay, so that we can set the default as the 0th index. Okay, and let's go to the login screen, and I'm going to change the bar color in the login screen also to the default teal color, so background color, and pass in the values. Okay, so it changed to the default teal color. Okay, let me close the other files, and we are gonna need the utils class now. So we're going to add a new plugin called Shared Preferences so that we can save the values in the local storage. Okay, it's a key value pair way of saving the data. You can have a key and a value saved in the local storage and you can retrieve it back. Okay, so I have added it, and I called the Flutter packages get to install the package. Now I'm going to copy some code and paste it in the utils class so that we can get an instance of the shared preferences. So import the shared preferences. Okay, so we got the handle to the shared preferences here, and let me define some keys. First one is the theme index key. So this is the key by which we'll be saving the theme index. Okay, and another key logged in to save if the user has logged in or not. Okay, so let's write some functions to save the theme index and get the theme index from the shared preferences. So final shared preferences is equal to await preferences. Let me make it a static. Okay, and call preferences dot set int. We are going to save the theme index and pass in the theme index. Similarly, let's write another function to get the theme index from the shared preferences. So static get theme index and call in theme index is equal to preferences dot get int and pass in the theme index key. So initially it will be null. So if it is null, we are resetting it to 0 and returning the theme index. Okay, so similarly, let's write the two functions to save the logged in key, which is a boolean, and call set boolean with the logged in key. Okay, and the getter method is logged in, where we are going to check if the is logged in value which is returned is null or not. So initially it will be null. So we are going to write like this: if it is not null and if it is true, that means the user is logged in. Okay, so otherwise if it is returning false, that means the user has not logged in or he has logged out. Okay, so let's try it out. I'm going to open the login screen, so where the user actually logs in. So that is the place where we navigate to the home screen after login. So there I'm setting the logged in to true, and in the settings screen I'm setting the logged in to false when the user logs out, and when the user taps on a color in the settings screen, I'm going to save the theme index in the preferences. So now we have the theme index and the logged in value in the preferences. Now we can see how we can retrieve it and make use of it. So call widgets flutter binding dot ensure initialized if you are making the main method asynchronous. Okay, and let's get the initial route, and we are going to check if the user is logged in. So get the logged in value from the preferences by calling utils dot is logged in, and we are going to check if it is true. Then we are setting the route to home route, and we will write a constructor for the home app and we will pass the route there. Okay, so final string route. Okay, and pass in the route for the home app. Okay, now let's use the route. Let's set the initial route to the passed in route. Okay, so if the user is logged in, then this route will be the home screen. I think I have an issue here, so that's a missing plugin exception. So let me try to reinstall the app. Okay, so I have reinstalled the app. Now let's try to log in, and I'm going to refresh the app. So you can see that our route is now the home route. So let me show that. So you can see that is logged in is now true, and it will return the home screen. Okay, now let's try to load the saved theme and theme our app now we are saving it, but we are not actually using it, right? So let's go to the home screen, and I'm gonna override the init method and write a new method, init theme. Here we are gonna get the theme saved by the user, which is the theme index. Now let me open the app settings class, where we have the method to update the color, the app color. So that's the update color method that's going to accept an index and get the color from the colors array and update the color. Okay, now let's go back to our method init theme, and we are going to get the theme index, which is saved by the user. So call utils dot, let me import that and get theme index. So that's going to get the theme index saved by the user, and we need to call the update color method. So this is the syntax to call it, and pass in the theme index. That's going to update the theme color, the app color. Okay, and call init theme. So let's try that. So you can see that it's retaining the brown color that I selected. So you can see that when we log out, it's still retaining the color, right? So we need to reset the theme. So when the user logs out, I'm setting the color to the 0th index, which is the teal color. Okay, and one more thing we need to do, we need to set the saved value, the saved theme index, to 0. So when we restart the app, you can see that it switched back to the default color. So if I log in and select a different color, and if I restart the app, you can see that it's retaining the brown color, and when I log out, it's resetting back to the default color. Okay, all right, so that's all in this video. This was a really simple example of using reusable widgets and theming your app. Make sure to watch the first part of this tutorial to completely understand this video. Link to the video is there in the description. If you find this video useful, please do like, subscribe and share. And also please leave your valuable comments below this video. I'll be providing the link to the source code for this demo in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.